Sadaशिवसमारम्भां
Shankaracharya
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
Madhyamam
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah
Om
Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya
Okay,
Acharya.
so I will request Tanmay to chant the 11th Anuvaka from Satyanna Pramaditavyam up till the end. We had done the earlier portion already.
Om Acharya. Satyanna pramaditavyam dharmanna pramaditavyam kushalanna pramaditavyam bhutyaina pramaditavyam svadhyaya pravachanabhyanna pramaditavyam.
Okay, fine. We'll do up to there. So, in this Anuvaka, we are seeing a lot of Karmakanda instructions. They are being summarized. And we had done up to the previous one, talking about the children. Prajatantumam yavachetasihi. Now, Satyanna Pramaditavyam. So, Pramada is being careless. So, Satyat, you have to break it up. Satyat na Pramaditavyam. So, Pramado na Kartavyaha. Do not be careless with the truth, which is a roundabout way of saying, be careful with the truth. Do not utter the untruth. Because Satyacha, because of negligence with regard to the truth, what is the problem with it? Shankara says, Anrita Prasangaha. If you are careless or negligent with regard to speaking the truth, it brings in the possibility that you may say something which is not true. Utterance of untruth becomes a possibility when one is not very conscious about what he is speaking, whether it is the truth or not. It's a very nice way of saying. You have to be very, very careful to speak the truth. And if you don't do that, that carelessness brings in the possibility of uttering untruths. And therefore Shankara adds, even carelessly, one should not speak untruths. And of course, therefore it means that deliberately or carelessly, either way, untruth should not be spoken at all. Again, I'll repeat what we always say. It doesn't mean that we should always speak the truth. It just means that whenever you speak, ensure that you speak the truth. Very big difference between always speak the truth and whenever you speak the truth. And in the Bhagavad Gita 17th chapter, Krishna used a particular word for this. Remember what it was? For this discipline, there is a particular word used by Krishna. Or two words.
Not Arjavam, no, actually.
No, not Arjavam at all. At this stage of your life, you should be, the Gita should be, rolling on your tongues and in your minds. What was the word?
Satyam Hitam Priyam.
No. It's a form of tapas. Okay, it's Vak tapas. So you should actually go back and read all that. I think it is the 15th or 16th verse of chapter 17. You should be aware of all this. Because 17th verse, 17th chapter, the 17th chapter of the Gita is basically Sadguna only. All these particular qualities. And then we look at the next part of the mantra. Dharmat na pramaditavyam. So dharman has to be broken up into dharmat na pramaditavyam. So dharma is equal to what? So Shankara says satkarma plus sadguna plus sadbhavana. Satkarma is noble actions. Sadguna is all the qualities which you have, which we talked about in chapter 17 and chapter 13, in short called sadhana, chatushtaya sampatti. So that is, dharma is a large word. Sadguna is part of it. Dharma equals satkarma plus sadguna plus satbhavanaha. That is noble attitudes. What are those? Ishwararpana bhavana, matradeva bhavaha, all those attitudes which we are talking about in the karma kanda, everything is included in dharma. And dharma has to be therefore understood as noble karma, good qualities, and good attitudes. Actions, attitudes, and qualities put together is called dharma. Where are all these taught? They are in the karma kanda. And therefore, wherever in our study we see dharma in the context of karma kanda, remember that dharma is always about the implementation of those instructions. Dharma jnanam therefore consists of two parts: the knowledge of the instructions and the implementation of those instructions. The practice of dharma, the prerequisite is what? Knowledge of what dharma is. So karma kanda provides the knowledge, and the knowledge has to be implemented. So karma kanda always has two parts of it: gaining the knowledge and implementing it. And that is the basic difference between karma kanda and jnana kanda. The basic difference between dharma jnanam and brahma jnanam. Dharma jnanam always is a precursor to practice. Dharma jnanam ends in practice. Brahma jnanam is an end in itself. That we should never forget. And therefore here, when you say dharmat na pramaditavyam, then the pramadaha should be taken as the negligence of ananushthanam, that is non-implementation of dharma, non-implementation of the instructions of karma kanda, not following the instructions of karma kanda. That is what is meant by do not be negligent about dharma over here. And what is the net effect? It gives rise to pratyavaya papam. Therefore, such a omission of not implementing the instructions of dharma should be avoided. That's the meaning of that particular part of the mantra. And next one is kushalan na pramaditavyam. Kushalat na pramaditavyam. All the kushalan na. Kushalat na. So kushalat na pramaditavyam. Kushalam here is your personal well-being. So Shankara defines it very clearly. Atma rakshartha karmanaha. All karma meant for atma rakshanam. Atma is you, the body-mind complex, and therefore any karma meant for protecting your body-mind complex. Veda is saying, na pramaditavyam. Do not neglect any karma meant for keeping your body and mind in fit condition. Why? Because body and mind are necessary for moksha. And therefore, this is a compulsory duty for all ashramas, including sannyasa ashrama. Okay, does Krishna say this anywhere? Where does Krishna talk about something similar? Anybody? No? Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshthasya dharmasu karmasu. Remember, did Krishna say that at all? Yeah, which chapter?
6.
Yeah, so please remember all connections have to be made, okay? So that is compulsory duty given here is that you should never neglect your own body and your mind, because that is essential for you to come to moksha at all. And it's a duty not for just the brahmacharya ashramas or the grahastha ashramas, but all the 4 ashramas. Keeping a healthy body and healthy mind, keeping the body fit and the mind fit is a compulsory duty. That is why it is found in the mantra, which says kushalanna pramaditavyam. Do not neglect your body and your mind, your own welfare. Kushalam basically means your welfare. Welfare means a fit body and a fit mind. Then bhutai na pramaditavyam. So bhutaha here is vibhutihi. So vibhutihi can be taken as glories also, but another meaning of vibhutihi is material prosperity. So bhutihi here means material prosperity, and this word bhutihi has been used by Krishna also in the same sense, same meaning. Where, guys, come on. Who are the Gita teachers? Anybody can answer? Come on. Where did Krishna use the word bhuti?
Is it Vibhuti Yoga, the 10th chapter, glories?
No. I'll read out for you. This is Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi. Material prosperity. Okay, that's the last verse of the Gita. So Bhutihi means Vibhutihi, material prosperity is one meaning, and therefore with regard to your material prosperity, with regard to your wealth, there should be no negligence. And Shankara says it means that all rituals meant for prosperity, including avahanti, homam, etc., they are auspicious. Why? Because wealth is represented by Lakshmi Devi. For all those rituals meant for getting you're keeping your wealth or earning more wealth, those rituals should definitely be done as a compulsory duty. Remember, this is Veda talking. Okay, so Veda says that don't neglect your body, don't neglect your money also. Be sure that your material wealth, why? Material wealth is necessary. For what purpose? For the grihastha, what is the purpose of
For
material
the
wealth?
grihastha, he is the earning member of the society. He will have to help the sannyasi and do the rituals.
Do the rituals also. All rituals, all the major rituals, they require money because they have to give dakshina, you have to, give the bring in the materials for the homam, all those things. Therefore, money is necessary. Okay, so Veda doesn't ask you to be poverty stricken. Then Swadhyaya Pravachanabhyam na Pramaditavyam. So there are two things here, Swadhyaya and Pravachanam. So Swadhyaya, Shankara says, is Adhyayana. Adhyayana is learning to chant. Right? And this, incidentally, Vedic chanting is called Ghoshaha, meaning loud chanting done by a group of Vedikas. And it is called Ghoshaha because it purifies the environment. And again, where did you come across the word Ghoshaha in Bhagavad Gita? Every word can be cross-referenced.
Acharya, it wasn't exactly Ghoshaha, but Saghosho Dhartarashtra. It was there also.
Which one?
Saghosho Dhartarashtra. Saghoshaha.
It's also Nakula Sahadevascha Sughosham Mani Pushpakau.
Goshamani.
Sugoshamani. Mani Pushpakau, the sound is very pleasant. Sughoshaha, loud sound but pleasant sound. So this Ghoshaha, the learning to chant, it's called Swadhyaya over here. And the next word is Pravachana. So Shankara defines Swadhyaya as Adhyayana, learning to chant. And he defines pravachanam as adhyapanam, teaching. Okay, so not only should you learn to chant, that is a compulsory duty, but you should teach also what you have learned. That also is a compulsory duty. So swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramaditavyam. One should not neglect either the learning or the teaching. Why? Because that is the way to maintain the Guru Shishya Parampara. And this indicates the instructions for doing Swadhyaya, which was given earlier. If you remember, in the ninth Anuvaka, which was given. So this is referring to that also. You should bring in that discussion also into your mind when you are reading this particular part of the mantra. Then Deva, I'm sorry, I think I am going ahead. Tanmay, you didn't chant, right? The rest of it? Swadhyaya.
Should I
Yeah,
take
please. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam to atithi deva bhavaha.
only till Atithi Deva Bhava?
Only till atithi deva bhava.
Okay.
Then we'll go later on.
Okay. Deva Pitra Karyabhyan Pramaditavyam Matra Devo Bhava Pitra Devo Bhava Acharya Devo Bhava Atithi Devo Bhava.
Thank you. So now he says Deva Pitra Karyabhyam na Pramaditavyam. Deva Karyam and Pitra Karyam. So Deva Yajna and Pitra Yajna one should not neglect. So what are we talking about? What is general term?
Panchamahayagni, part of the
Panchamahayagni.
Pancha.
We are talking about Panchamahayagni. So Deva Pitra Karyabhyam na Pravaditavyam. Do not neglect the Panchamahayagni. Worship of God should not be neglected. And why? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is an example. They say that when you want to nourish the tree, you don't pour water all over the tree. You pour water only at the root. Because what is given to the root, when water is given to the root, it nourishes the whole tree. Every cell of the tree gets the benefit of the water. And therefore, this universe is also a tree, and there are many leaves, so there are many people in the tree who are suffering. With my limited capacities, it is not possible for me to help every person. Therefore, Veda says, don't bother about that. Serve the root of this tree. And the root of this tree is what? Ishvaraha. And where did we see this comparison? In the Gita? Guys, come on.
15th chapter.
Yes, 15th chapter. What is
Urdhvamula Madashakam.
Urdhvamula Malashakam. Okay, so that way everything that you read, please connect back to the Gita. That's the only way we will keep the knowledge alive in our minds. And therefore Veda says, serve the root of this tree, which is Ishvara. Because if you serve the root, that service which you give the root, that will reach every possible being in this universe, because Ishvara is there everywhere. And that is why we do puja to the Lord and we say, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. So just as water offered at the root reaches the whole tree, without my perception, of course, whatever is offered as Deva Yajna will reach everybody, will help everybody. And therefore, Veda is saying, never neglect your daily Ishvara prayers. Not only will it purify your mind, conferring Jnana Yogyata Chitta Shuddhi on you, it will also help the world. And therefore, never neglect it. And this is what is called Deva Karyam or Deva Yajna. Similarly, Pitra Karyam, worship of the ancestors. Even if they are, you might say, how do I know, that they are still in the Pitra form, in the ancestor form? They may have been reborn. And we are saying, even if they are reborn, it will still reach them. The general offering which we are making to the Pitras, to the ancestors, will go to the ancestors of everybody. Supposing you have no ancestors, supposing your I mean, of course you have ancestors. Okay, fine. So it goes to your ancestors. But what about those people who don't do any offerings? There are many people who don't have any offerings. So this is one of the points that Veda makes, is that you should do worship of the ancestors. Pitra worship should be done for the benefit of your ancestors. But also remember that there are many people who are not benefited by their children because their children do not worship at all. And therefore, your offering will also go to the ancestors of other children. Okay, so that's what Veda says. And of course, even if this does not happen, let us say all these things don't work, there is a direct result of all this worship. What is that? It is Jnana Yogata. It is Chitta Shuddhi. Okay. Then, now it comes to attitudes. So he says, Matra Devo Bhavaha. Now we know where these things come from. So these are very often, most of us are familiar with this. Matra Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava. And where does it come from? It comes from this Upanishad, from this mantra. So Matra Deva Bhavaha, may your mother be Ishvara to you. May you look upon your mother as Ishvara herself, as the Lord herself. May you invoke the Lord on your mother. Similarly, Pitra Deva Bhavaha, may your father be a god to you. May you worship your father. May you invoke the Lord. May you invoke Ishvara, keeping your mother and father as Alambanam. So when you are invoking Ishvara on Alambanam, remember that Alambanam may have many defects, but the invocation of Ishvara on the Alambanam is ignoring the limitations and deficiencies of the Alambanam and therefore sanctifying the Alambanam itself. Therefore, Pitra Deva Bhavaha, Matra Deva Bhavaha, look upon your mother and father as the Lord, irrespective of any limitations which they have. All human beings have limitations and deficiencies. Don't consider them as Lord themselves. Then, Acharya Deva Bhavaha. May you invoke the Lord on your Acharya, on your teacher also. So from this, we see that Veda considers the fact that in the first few years of our lives, when we are born, the first few years, the maximum contact in the initial years is with the mother. And secondly, with the father. And then thirdly, with the teacher. So these people have a massive influence on your life. Your mother, then your father, and then your teacher. If these three relationships are healthy, then the child will be emotionally mature. Okay, so this is what is meant by these two mantras. Matra Deva Bhavaha, Pitra Deva Bhavaha, Acharya Deva Bhava. And then Atithi Deva Bhavaha. Atithi is a guest. So may you look upon Atithi as Ishvara, as a god. Okay. This was very relevant in Vedic society. And remember that in Vedic society, people, like today also, people go on pilgrimages, people travel. But today when they travel and they go on pilgrimages, what happens? They can go and stay in a guest house or a dharmashala, anywhere, in a hotel. Right? But in Vedic society, selling food was considered to be a papa, a major sin. You couldn't sell food. Annam was Ishvara, you couldn't sell that, right? And therefore, whenever you traveled, either as a sadhaka or as a normal traveler, you wouldn't have availability of any place to stay. Therefore, whichever village the traveler was, he was required to take shelter in a house, right? And it was the duty of the grahastha to give food and shelter to whoever arrives. Therefore, there is a saying, na vidyate dvitiya titihi yasya atitihi. The person who does not have a second night with you, person who stays only for one night, that is the atithi. And those days, of course, it was an acceptable practice, and this is called Manushya Yajna. This particular part is the third Yajna. Deva Yajna we have seen, Pitra Yajna we have seen. This Atithi Yajna is Manushya Yajna. Okay. Nowadays, of course, it's not practical also, and it's not necessary also, because everybody has guest houses and hotels. And thirdly, even if you want to do this, it involves an element of unnecessary risk, right? Who knows what the Atithi is going to be like? Whether he will cut your throat in the night or not, you don't know. And therefore, nowadays it has dropped out of practice. Okay. Right. Now we can continue with the Anuvaka. Tanmayji can read a few more lines up to maybe Tesham Vayasanena Prashvasitavyam.
Okay. Got it. Yanyanavatyani karmani tani sevitavyani no itarani yanyasmakagam sucharitani tani tvayopasyani no itarani ye ke chasmachreyagam so brahmana teshan tvayasanena prashvasitavyam.
Okay, thank you. So now the Anuvaka continues. Okay, and here the Guru in the Upanishad, he is giving advice. What is that advice? For learning Dharma Shastra, what should be the accompanying way of living? Which means what is proper action and what is improper action. So with regard to what is Dharma and what is Adharma, how many sources of knowledge do we have? So Veda says there are three basic sources. One is the Veda itself, the original and the primary source, the basic source. Shruti is one source. Then there is Smriti, which is a secondary source. Smritis are written material, but they are based on Shruti alone. They have been written by Acharyas and Rishis. The words belong to the Acharyas and the Rishis, but the ideas are, the contents are based on Shruti alone. So whenever we talk about Shruti, it is Veda alone. And whenever we talk about Smriti, every other text can be included under the heading of Smriti, including Puranas, Itihasas, everything can be included there, right? We of course aggregate when we talk Smriti, Veda, Purana, but remember that there are basically only two classifications, Veda, the Shruti, and other Granthas, Smriti. So Veda, Shruti and Smriti are two primary sources of knowledge about what is Dharma and what is Adharma. And there is a third source which also Veda considers very important, this is Shishtachara, the lifestyle of those Shishtas. Shishtas are those people who have studied and assimilated Shruti and Smriti both. What is their lifestyle? That's called a Shishtaha, a person who has assimilated Shruti and Smriti. And therefore, three sources of knowledge are there about the Dharma, Adharma, Viveka to call it. So, Shruti, Smriti, and Shishtachara. Okay. Then comes the question of what happens when either a Smriti Vakyam or Shishtachara contradicts Shruti. A good question because it happens all the time. And in fact, there are stories in the Puranas. For example, Rishi Durvasa, right? What is the speciality of Rishi Durvasa?
He's a very angry person.
He's a very angry person, shouting all the time, right? What does it contradict? Sama, right? Shama contradicts. And therefore, the Shishtachara over here, because Rishi Durvasa is considered a person who's very great Acharya, assimilated Shruti and Smriti both. And therefore, his Shishtachara, his behavior is contradicting Shruti. Therefore, Veda says that when this happens, wherever there is a contradiction, what should you do? Follow Shruti only, right? And therefore, it is saying that no human being can be 100% perfect. Even the most the biggest jnani will have doshaha. Even avatars have imperfections, have doshaha. There is only one perfect being, that is Ishvara alone. And therefore, the Guru is saying that the time will come during your study when your reliance on the Guru, on the Acharya, should become less and less. And your reliance should shift more and more onto Shastra. Therefore, the hierarchy is Shruti, Smriti, Shishtacharaha. If Shishtacharaha contradicts Smriti and Shruti, follow Smriti. Or if Shishtachara contradicts Smriti, follow Smriti. If Smriti also contradicts, then follow Shruti. So hierarchy is Shruti first, then Smriti, then Shishtachara. Right? Some commentators give examples of, for examples, say Rishi cursing somebody. Rishi has a lot of punyam and he uses that. And if you read Mahabharata and Ramayana, the whole place is full of people cursing each other. You say something, Rishi gets angry and curses you, converts you into a stone or a tree or something, or a crocodile. Okay, what is that? Is it good behavior? No. So commentators say that when such examples are given, such behavior should not be followed. There is a very famous example, of Parshurama. What is Parshurama supposed to have done on the instructions of his father? Anybody?
Parshurama was the avatar. He basically killed off all the Kshatriyas.
Yes, but there was one more aspect of it. Parshurama killed his mother on the instructions of his father. And therefore Shruti says, here, the commentator says, what is the, Shruti Vakyam which is being contradicted?
Matra Deva.
Matra Deva Bhavaha. Therefore, he should not have obeyed. Okay. Such words should not be followed. And therefore, he says, Yanya api cha anyani, which means api cha yani anyani, with regard to all other actions. All other actions means what? Actions which are already mentioned in this Anuvaka, Ritam, Satyam, Devakarma, Pitrakarma, all those things. With regard to all those other actions, Anvadhyani. Anvadhyani means which is not prohibited by Veda. So with regard to all those actions not prohibited by Veda and which are followed by Shishthas, respected persons, elders, Shishtha literally is a person who has studied and understood the scriptures. So he says, Tani Sevyatavyani. May you follow those actions. What actions? Anavadhyani. All actions not prohibited by the Veda, may you follow those actions. No itarani. Okay, this is not the English no, though the meaning is still the same. Okay. The no here is absolutely English no. But that no is to be broken up as na plus u. U being for emphasis, na being no. Those actions you should not do. Na kartavyani u. We should definitely not do those actions. Which are what? Itarani. Those actions which are prohibited by Shruti, which have got defects, those actions you should not do. And therefore, Yani asmakam suchiritani tani toyo pasyani. Tani asmakam. Tani asmakam means what? Yani asmakam, relating to the acharyas. Suchiritani. Suchiritani is noble behavior. Shobhana charitani. Charitam is behavior. Suchiritani. Shobhana Sucharita, Sucharitra, noble behavior. How do you define noble behavior? Shankara is very clear. Amnyadi aviruddhani. So, amnya is a word you should be familiar with. Amnya you will find being used very extensively by Shankara. Amnya simply means Veda. So, those behaviors which are Veda aviruddhani, which are not violative of the Veda, which are not viruddham to the Veda, they are called noble behavior. Tani eva tvaya upasyani. Only those you should follow. Right? And therefore, a very important thing is coming out here. Do not blindly follow the Guru. Do not blindly follow your Acharya if his actions are contradicting the Shastram. More also you don't know why Guru is acting in a particular manner. Okay, you don't know why he is behaving in that particular manner. Veda is not saying that you should stand in judgment of the teacher. Okay, but whatever he is saying or doing, from that you should take what is appropriate only and do not take what is not appropriate. It's a very, very important part of the Vedic instruction. This particular sentence where it says that take only that from your Guru which does not violate the Shastra. Thereby saying very clearly that Shastra is the only source. And if Guru is saying or doing something which is violative of Shastra, you should not take that part from the Guru. You should not appropriate that part. You should not follow that part. Okay, there is another way of explaining also that you should not compromise on any of the values which Veda lays down as long as you are subject to Ragadvesha. Why? Because if I am subject to Ragadvesha, it is more than possible that Ragadvesha is running my intellect, and therefore it becomes easy to rationalize any action. But a jnani can compromise on values because for him Ragadvesha has been transcended, and that is why we say that jnani is beyond prohibitions and injunctions, beyond vidhi and nisheda. So there is a story, I don't know if you people have heard it, once upon a time it seems Gandhiji went to Birla during the freedom struggle. Okay, who knows the story? I think Tanmay knows the story. You don't know the story? Okay. So Gandhiji went to Birla and he wanted some money. Freedom struggle was happening, right? So Birla didn't ask Gandhiji how much you want. He gave him the checkbook and said, write what you want. Okay. So he knew that Gandhiji would take only what he required. And they were handing over the checkbook, there was no risk. Therefore, you can give freedom to a person, or rather Veda gives freedom to a person, complete freedom to a person, where the person has transcended Ragadvesha, which is why we often say that the jnani is beyond the realm of the instructions of the Veda. He doesn't need it. Not because he is going to prohibit or to violate those instructions, but because the jnani doesn't need external instructions to modify his behavior. He is governed by his internal conscience, if you want to call it. So that is why he says no itarani. No itarani means even if prohibited actions are done by a guru, you should not follow them only. Right? Those actions which are not proper, no itarani, not others. Actions which are not mandated by Shastram, you should never do. Again showing that the Vedic religion or the Vedic instructions are not specific to the Guru or the teacher, are never person oriented, never person centered, centered on Veda only. This is why very often it is said that Buddha is respected, but Buddhism could not survive because Buddhism contradicted the Shastra. Right? Similarly, Patanjali, he has given a yoga practice which is excellent for jnana yogyata, but the dualistic philosophy is against Vedic teaching. The practice does not contradict the Shastram, and therefore practice has been adopted by Vedanta, but the philosophy contradicts, and therefore we have rejected. Similarly, Nyaya Vaisheshika, also called Tarka Shastram, it presents the logical method of thinking. The thinking is not contradictory to Veda. Logic is not contradictory to Veda. Therefore, we accept. But the philosophy of Tarka Shastram, the philosophy of Nyaya Vaisheshika contradicts Shastram, so we reject. Right? Similarly, any teaching you take, You can take Ramakrishna, you can take Ramana Maharishi. Even if you take Shankaracharya, if ever there is a contradiction to Shastram, you have to reject that. You have to accept only what is in line with the Shastram. Therefore, in this mantra, the Guru himself says, Yeke chasmachrayamso brahmanaha tesham tvayasanena prashvasitavyam. How to behave with elderly people, he is saying. And a description of such people is given. Yeke cha visheshitaha. So, if there are people who have dharmic qualities, and compared to us, compared to us, they are superior. Supposing there are people you are visiting or around you who have dharmic qualities, and if they are superior to you, what are they? They are brahmanas. They are guna brahmanas. And Shankaracharya says, Tesham, to those people. So here, asanena means give them a seat. There are wise people around you, or you have approached wise people, or they have come to your house. What should you do? You should provide them a seat. And then, tvaya prashava sitavyam. Prashava sitavyam simply means you should remove their fatigue. How do you remove the fatigue of anybody? By providing food and water. So give them a seat first. When a learned person or when a respected person approaches your house, comes to you, what should you do? First, give them a seat, then give them water and food. Okay. Now, interestingly, some little grammatical stuff here. For those who are not interested, you can simply go to sleep. Okay. Tvaya asanena prashvasitavyam. That is the sentence split. Okay. And that meaning I just told you. When they come to your house, give them an asanam, give them a seat, and then remove their tiredness by providing food and water. And Shankara says you can split this particular sentence separately. So instead of splitting tvaya asanena prashvastavyam, you split it as tvaya asane na prashvasitavyam. You see the difference? The first split was tvaya asanena, having offered the asanam. Then what should you do? Prashvasitavyam. You should remove the tiredness. That is the first meaning. Now he is saying you split the word at asane. So tvaya asane na prashvasitavyam. So here it is, if the person is already seated. So the meaning here is that wise person is already seated. You have gone somewhere and you have seen the jnani seated, right? Then what is happening? Shankara says, he adds over there, Goshthi Nimitte. He says a discussion on Vedanta is going on. So you have gone to a particular place whether a jnani is seated, Mahatma is seated, and there a discussion on Vedanta is going on, a discussion on Shastram is going on. There he says, when you are in such an assembly among Mahatmas, and he uses two words, Jnana Vriddha. Those jnanis are old with respect to jnanam, in the sense that they have more jnanam than you, Jnana Vriddha. Or they may be Shila Vriddha. Shila means practice. So they have practiced more than you, and therefore they are superior to you in various fields. What should you do? Na prashvasitavyam. You should not even breathe. To be understood as what? You should not talk, be totally silent, and just listen. So in English we say, don't breathe a word. So that's what he's meaning. In the presence of jnanis who are discussing something, you don't go and add your two bits. You just listen. Whatever the discussion is, you try to understand, right? So in our tradition, we use an acharya to get access to the scriptures. I go to the guru and I stay with him until I have access, which means until I have begun to understand. And once I have begun to understand, then the Acharya becomes incidental. The scriptures become dominant in my life. No Acharya, no Guru can be greater than the Parampara. Therefore, the focus in Shastram, the focus is on the tradition, on the Parampara. That is Shastram. That is Parampara. Focus on Guru is a cult. If the Guru becomes the central focus, it is a cult, and then Guru has failed to teach properly. Very, very important takeaway from this particular mantra. Okay. Tanmayji, Shraddhaya Deyam to Samvida Deyam.
Shraddhaya Deyam, Ashraddhaya Deyam, Shriya Deyam, Kriya Deyam, Khiya Deyam, Samvida Deyam.
Okay. So, Shraddhaya Deyam. So, here the commentary is whatever is given as Danam, as charity, Shraddhaya Deyam. Deyam here means Datavyam, should be given. So, the instruction of the Veda is that when whatever you give with Shraddha. Shraddha in the Vedic instructions. Otherwise, there will be Adrishtya. Otherwise, there will be no benefit at all. Only if you are giving with faith in the Veda will the giving benefit. What is the benefit of the giving? Adrishta Punyam. So may you give with Shraddha. Shraddhaya Deyam. May you give with Shraddha in the Vedas. And whenever you give with Shraddha in the Veda, there is no loss in giving. Whatever you give is no loss. Even though you are losing materially, spiritually you are gaining. And therefore, overall you have gained. What is the spiritual gain? Chitta Shuddhi. Spiritual progress. And this Shraddha must be there. That in this following of the instructions of the Veda, I am going to get Chitta Shuddhi. And therefore, may you give with that Shraddha. Okay, that Shraddha is the very basis, the attitude with which you should give. Then, Ashraddhaya Deyam. So you can split that, Ashraddhaya Adeyam. Remember that A and A is when you break up, you can break it up either way. So it can be Ashraddhaya Adeyam or Ashraddhaya Deyam. So here we are taking the breakup of Ashraddhaya Adeyam. Adeyam means do not give. And therefore, the second part is, first part was what? Give with Shraddha. And the second part is saying Ashraddhaya Adeyam. If you don't have Shraddha, never give. Because it becomes Tamasika Danam. Where did it come? Adesha Kale Yaddanam Appatriyabhyascha Diyate Asatkritam Avajñatam Tattamasam Hadaratam. Whatever is given without considering the factors involved in the giving, it is Tamasik Dhanam. Therefore, may you not give if you don't have faith. If you don't have Shraddha in the Veda, which says that when you give, you may be losing materially, but you are gaining spiritually by way of Chitta Shuddhi, then only should you give. If you don't have that faith, don't give. Why? Because the faith is not there, you will see only the loss. And therefore, you will be giving with resentment. Okay, that is one interpretation. Shankara gives another one. He says, you can also split as Ashraddhaya Deyam. I said that word is a compound word, Ashraddhaya Deyam. It can be split as Ashraddhaya Adeyam. It can also be split as Ashraddhaya Deyam. So the first was, do not give if you don't have Shraddha, because you will resent it. The second interpretation is Ashraddhaya Deyam. Even if you do not have Shraddha, you give. Because even if it doesn't benefit you, it benefits the other. The receiver it benefits. Because giving without faith is better than not giving at all. Okay. Then Shriya Deyam. So Shriya means in adequate quantity. So give in plenty. Give in plenty. Don't give miserably. As much as you can afford, you give. Then Hriya Deyam. Hriyam is Lajjaya, modesty. So Hriya Deyam. Be modest in your attitude when giving. It's easy to give and be arrogant. But we should remember that when you give, that giving should be in such a manner, with such an attitude, that both of you are blessed, that the giver is blessed and the receiver is blessed. Arrogance converts the dhanam into rajasika dhanam. So don't do that. Don't be arrogant and give. Be humble when you give. Know that by giving, you are also blessed. You are, of course, blessing the receiver, but you are blessed because punya is generated. Then bhiya deyam. So the normal meaning of bhiya is fear, but Shankara says that you should take it as fear of pratyavaya papa. You should give with fear. With fear of what? That if you don't give, I will incur pratyavaya papam. What is the logic? What is the logic of the statement?
Dhanam is a nitya karma and it must always be done, and by not doing it, we incur pratyavaya papa.
Absolutely. Dhanam is nitya karma, compulsory duty. And what is nitya karma? If you don't do, you will get pratyavaya papam. So the ones who do not give dhanam are subject to the sins of omission, which we call pratyavaya papam. There is another meaning again. So Shankara gives two meanings everywhere. Okay, another meaning. Here, bhiya is anxiety, concern, but the concern is not about you. The concern is about the receiver. So may I have fear, anxiety, concern for the receiver of the dhanam. What I am giving should be useful for the other person and help him. Therefore, I should have empathy, the mental capacity to, understand the problems of the receiver and give sympathetically and with compassion. That is also one meaning of dhiyadeyam. And the last one is samvidadeyam. Samvida is as a social obligation. So give it as a social obligation. That is one meaning. Now there is an acharya called Sayana Acharya, also a renowned commentator. Okay. He says samvida can be taken as jnanam. And therefore, when you say samvidadeyam, the first normal interpretation is what? Give it as a social obligation. Because you live in society, you are bound to pay a debt to society, and therefore dhanam is paying that debt. Sayanacharya says you can also have another meaning, jnanam. Samvida is jnanam. May you do the dhanam, may you give the dhanam with proper knowledge. What is the knowledge? Make sure that the person receiving that knowledge is what they call worthy of knowledge. Person receiving that dhanam is worthy of the dhanam. So you should not give to a person who is not worthy of receiving. This also you have seen in Bhagavad Gita. What is that?
So the sattvic dhanam, you have to see the supatra, you have to see the patra, the time
Patra,
of this.
exactly. So deshe kale cha patre cha tad dhanam satvikam smritam. 17th chapter. So give with proper understanding of desha kala patra. Desha is right time, right place. Kala is right time. Patra is right person. To a person who does not fulfill desha, kala and patra, you should not give. Right? For example, a traffic signal is definitely not the right place for dhanam. So desha is not fulfilled. Right? You have to do everything properly. So Shankara is saying that there is a relevant point here. What to do when society changes? Right? That, of course, is the next sentence, which again I will ask Tanmay to read. We'll just do that one sentence, which goes ataha and ends at syat. Tanmay, could you just read that out? Atha yadi te up to syat, the first sentence.
अथ यदि ते कर्म विचिकित्सा वा वृत्त विचिकित्सा वा स्यात्.
Okay. So what is being done here is that Shastra has recognized that society changes, environment changes, and what to do when the society changes in respect to a Shastric rule. How can the injunction of the Veda, of the Karma Kanda, be implemented in a changed environment? So simple things, Brahma Muhurat is here 3 to 5. So when I am in the USA, am I going to look at the Brahma Muhurat of USA, or am I going to look at the Brahma Muhurat of India? Which is the real Brahma Muhurat? That you have to see. Some other things. Can Shraddh be done if I am in Belgium? No. If I am in Belgium and Shraddh is to be done, which river? Or if I am in Middle East and Shraddh is to be done, there is no river. So how do I do? Can the Vedic instructions be followed? Such details cannot possibly be discussed in Shastra because Shastra has not recognized or envisaged all these things. It's not possible to discuss or visualize every situation which will come in my life. And therefore, Shastram can give only broad guidelines. We should have the understanding of the Shastram to extract the meaning and extrapolate to various situations, apply it to various situations, and therefore interpretation of the Shastram becomes very important. The Tatparyam, the essence of what is intended by the text, has to be understood properly, extracted, and implemented in the current environment. So he says, Atha yadi, now if te karma vichikitsa. Vichikitsa means there is a doubt. Karma vichikitsa means there is a doubt about karma. And karma here is Vaidika karma. So if there is a doubt about how rituals are to be done, what should you do? Atha evam vartamanasya. You go to a person who is experienced in Karma Kanda, who is following the Vedic Vidhi and Nisheda. And Yadi means if, Yadi Tava, if for them, Yadi Tava, if for them, for what? For these people who are following the Vedic Nisheda and Vidhi. Remember here, Acharya is addressing the Shishyas, right? So in regard to rituals with our Shrauta and Smartha, which are part of the Shruti and part of the Smriti, Vichikitsa, if there are any doubts, if there are any samshayas. So Vichikitsa you can translate as samshaya. Vichikitsa syat is karma samshaya syat. If there are any doubts about how to do the rituals, it can be either Shruti rituals or Smriti rituals, then Vritta Vichikitsa. Vritteva. So Vritteva is, Vritta means acharan, social behavior. So Vritteva, in case you have doubts about the social conduct. So there are two things. Doubts about your doing the karma, how to do it, how to interpret the Vedic instructions, or doubt about my social behavior. What should I do? Again, this comes to the next word of the mantra, which I won't ask Tanmay to, very small. Ye tatra brahmanaha samarshinaha. So, ye brahmanaha, what should you do? If you have doubts about the rituals or the social behavior, what should you do? Ye brahmanaha, look at those elderly people, look at those respected people, look at those people who have understood the karma kanda and are following it. And tatra. Tatra has to be understood as deshe kaleva, at the time and the place where you are situated. So you can't look at the elderly respected person who was, alive 500 years ago. So necessarily, yes, tatra brahmana, ye tatra brahmana means look at those respected acharyas who are currently alive and go to the brahmana, to the guna brahmana, and he should have a capacity. What is that? Samarshinaha. Samarshinaha means capable of analyzing the Vedic instructions, especially in changing times. Therefore, this Brahmana should be capable of analyzing instructions, extracting the meaning of the Vedic instructions in relation to the current time and place. And yukta, ayuktaha, aluksha, dharma kama syu. The other two parts of the mantra we shall cover today. Yukta, ayuktaha. Yukta means committed to those rituals, which means that person is practicing the rituals. The person you are going for asking advice, not only should he have the capacity to analyze, tamarshinaha, and not just analyze in relation to changing environment. And he's practicing the rituals, yuktaha, practicing those rituals. And ayuktaha. So ayuktaha is literally means not practicing, but this is Chandasa Prayoga, Vedic usage for ayukta. Ayukta is ayukta. Ayukta means not influenced by considerations other than that of Veda. So that particular ayukta, which literally means not practicing or not considering, has to be taken as he is practicing the Vedic instructions, Vedic karmas, but he is not influenced by non-Vedic considerations. And alukshaha, aluksha is basically arukshaha, which means people who do not blindly follow rules. People who are thinking people, they are not rigid, they are not inflexible, they read the Veda, but if the Vedic instruction is impractical in modern times, they don't blindly say you must follow. Dharma kama syuhu. They consider dharma as an important purushartha. So such people who have understood the importance of this kind of karma because it generates adrishtam, punyam papam, and such people should be free of desires for material wealth. That is why he said a person who is a wise person who is practicing is a jnani. So he should not be interested in wealth or position. He should be voluntarily living a life of poverty. That is what Veda says. What should you do? Yatha te tatra varteran, tatha tatra vartethaha. In whatever manner they conduct themselves. Yatha te tatra varteran. In whatever manner they conduct themselves. Tatha tatra varteran, vartetha. In that manner also you should do. Right? So whatever that person is doing, you should accept that and you should also do. So once you have accepted the fact that the interpretation of the wise person to whom you have gone is correct, and he is a person who has the ability to extract the Veda and apply it to current situations, then his authority should not be questioned. Because in Vedic society, once the traditional interpretation has been given, you should not question. Right? So that you should follow immediately. And with that, we'll stop for today. That particular person to whom you have gone, who has the capacity to analyze the Veda and apply the instructions in the modern context, you should do what he does. So that is it. What to do in case Vedic instructions are impractical? Very often asked question. This is the answer to that. With this, we'll stop. Any questions? All karma kanda.
Acharya, I have a question about the Ashraddhaya Adeyam.
Yeah. Yes.
So it basically Ashraddhaya Adeyam.
Yeah.
It does not mean don't give if you don't have Shraddha.
It means exactly that.
It means okay.
Why? What is the reason? Because if you are giving with Shraddha, you are understanding that though I am losing materially, I am gaining spiritually. That is a Shraddha.
Yes.
And therefore you don't resent it. Even though you are actually losing out on money, Your benefit is, for you, the spiritual benefit is higher, and therefore you don't resent the giving. Therefore, ashraddhaya adeya.
Ashraddhaya adeyam.
Without
It-
shraddha, don't give.
Don't give. Right. No, I thought I heard you say at some point that even if there is no Shraddha, still it is better to give than to not give.
That is another interpretation.
Okay.
But ashraddhaya adeyam can be also written as ashraddhaya deyam.
Right.
A second interpretation. So it says that if you don't have shraddha, also you can give. Because even though your heart may burn, the other fellow will benefit.
But that's tamasic danam, isn't it?
Yes, but the other fellow benefits. So there is
So
some
whether
benefit.
it-
For you,
so
there is no
whether-
benefit, but there's some benefit.
So basically, in giving, it is always good. Doesn't matter how you're giving, just
How
give.
you are giving. Your attitude can determine whether you also benefit. Attitude can determine whether you don't benefit at all. There are many
Then-
other things. When you give with shraddha, you are more respectful of the person to whom you are giving. When you give without shraddha, you might tend to insult him.
But Acharya, aren't these two meanings completely diametrically opposite?
They have one running thread. Ultimately, it benefits one person at least.
No, as in one is saying deyam and one is saying adeyam.
Correct.
Give and don't give.
That is right. But you understand that they are saying that because in both cases, somebody at least benefits. In one case, two people benefit. In one case, one person benefits. These are all interpretations, various acharyas. I'm trying to present to you all the possible interpretations.
Okay, thank you so much, Acharya.
Okay. So with this, we'll stop. Anybody else? All right. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om Om.